Now, Harry Enfield is among speakers who've been quietly no-platform by a university debating society because he defended using blackface when he portrayed Nelson Mandela. The Oxford Union decided against inviting the comedian after he said in a BBC interview 2 years ago that he had no regrets about playing Mandela. Have a look at this.
Good evening. I'm Nelson Mandela. I'm the former president of South Africa. And this are Alco Pops.
Now, we play that to illustrate the point, and if anybody does find that offensive, clearly that isn't the intention. This is a debate on this very point. In recent times, comedians have apologised for playing characters in blackface, like David Walliams and Matt Lucas, playing characters in Little Britain. Lee Francis, or Keith Lemon, also apologised for Channel 4 Bo Selector's show. I think he parodied Trisha Goddard. Other incidents, the Canadian President, Justin Trudeau, in blackface when he was a student. And even a Conservative MP over here, Sir Desmond Swain, questioned why his decision to black up for a party could be deemed offensive as a picture of him emerged dressed up as James Brown. It was a Blues Brothers thing. Should comedians apologise for controversial content from their past? And the emphasis there on past. And I've no idea, by the way, whether Harry... Most of those others have actually apologised now. I don't know whether Harry Enfield has reviewed his opinion from 2 years ago where he said he had no regrets. Let's speak with Luke Stephen, comedian, and also Weyman Bennett, co-founder of Stand Up to Racism. Good afternoon to you both. Luke, firstly, is it offensive?
Well, anything can be classified as offensive. It's whether you choose to take offence from it or not. I think what's important to remember is the reasons why he's doing it. The thing that Harry Enfield said in that interview with Nick Robinson back in 2020 was that he was sick of the typical stereotypes of black people being drug dealers. So he looked at how can I satirise that. He looked at someone he admired, which was Nelson Mandela, someone who described as he had the privilege of meeting once, and thought, wouldn't it be funny if you had him pushing Alco Pops on children? Because it just shows how ridiculous this stereotype of black people is. So that's why he did it. He wasn't doing it to mock Nelson Mandela. It was to highlight the ridiculousness of that stereotype of black people in the first place.
Got it.
And he also didn't say. It's also important to remember in that interview with Nick Robinson, he did say he wouldn't do it now, but he doesn't really regret doing it. And I think that's a fair argument.
Yeah. Weyman, is that fair enough? He wouldn't do it now, and the story behind it, as Luke just outline there. Yeah. I mean, I kind of get that. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, look, let's understand that obviously Harry Enfield opposed apartheid, has a history of doing it and has that history. The thing about blackface is that blackface has a deep-rooted culture about racism and about parody of black people. And what people are trying to do now is remove that out of culture, remove that out of that's entertaining or in that way. So blackface was rooted in parodying black people. And so what we've had to do is we've had to readdress that. So when I grew up, there was a black and white minstrel show, or in Australia, it was Bye Bye. You know, there's people that literally parodied, it was a joke. And that fitted in with the kind of culture around presenting black people as a joke. And I think what people have said is that in the 21st century, we want to move away from those parodies because that doesn't fit. And that's why there's been such a kind of rejection, not just in this country, but internationally, where black communities have said, look, there's nothing wrong with having a joke. There's nothing wrong with culture. Everybody wants comedy, right? But what we don't want to do is a particular community just seen as a joke because it's
but on that point, Weyman, I mean, you're absolutely bang on about the black and white minstrels. I can't imagine anyone constructing an argument that would say, yeah, that was okay. But of course, that would be seen as maybe different to what Harry Enfield is doing, what they did in Little Britain, etc. That's not quite the same thing, is it? Nobody is saying, look, aren't black people funny? When Matt Lucas was, I think he was Jesse Jackson, I think.
Yeah, but what people are saying that because we still, unfortunately, live in a racist society, right? People that are progressive actually oppose racism. But unfortunately, last year, racist attacks went up from 158,000, a 17% increase. And so what people are saying is the more we can do for a more equal society, the better that is. And that means even things like culture, you have to look at it. There's people I work with in the music industry who blacked up in the 80s who work with black artists now, openly say to them, I would never do that again. Yeah. I mean, you know, music companies remove senior executives because they blacked up in the 80s. It's because it's changed. There's been a much more sensitivity to opposing racism rather than just seeing it as part of people's different viewpoints.
I get it. Listen,
that's why blackface has been coming to that.
Okay, look, and Luke, I mean, I suppose it's about, do we airbrush these scenes? I mean, there's certain sitcoms that are no longer shown because of not necessarily blackface, but blatant, overt racist humour. So it ain't half hot, mum, and various other things are no longer on the telly. But those that have got a body of work behind them, who would have used black makeup to become a black character, not to take the mickey out of someone's race or colour of their skin, but simply to impersonate a well-known person. Should people now apologise for that?
I don't. It's a tricky one. I think the idea of apologising for something you did 15 years ago, when you stated you wouldn't do it now, I don't really see. I mean, who are you apologising to? What benefit is that for? I mean, if you can recognise that I wouldn't do that now, I think that's fine. But also, as well, we're talking about him being no platform from the Oxford Union Debating Society. If you don't agree with his stance, debate him with it. Don't just say, don't shut him down and go, right, you can't come in. It's supposed to be a university. You're supposed to be challenged. You're supposed to have difficult questions thrown at you. That's the idea of a university, isn't it? Surely. I mean, I didn't go, but I've heard that's what it's about.
I think
surely expect that from Oxford. But, I mean, that's what we're saying. He's been no platform. No one here is saying, we should still be able to do this character now. We should have black race on television because it's funny. We're talking about him being no platform.
Correct. I mean, that's the point, isn't it, Weyman? I mean, is it right to no platform Harry Enfield over this?
Look, I was one of the architects of the no platform policy when I was at university.
Yeah.
And we were very specific about what no platform was for.
People you disagree with, right?
Organising, no.
Come on.
It was for organising Nazis and organising racists. Other people, you could
How many Nazis were invited to your university?
Well, at that time, people from the National Front were invited to our universities, and they physically attacked students that were black and Asian.
Well, clearly, nobody wants to see that. I get that.
So there's no threat of that happening if you invite Harry Enfield to your university. He's not going to.
No, but as I said, I don't believe that he should be no platformed, right?
Right. Yeah.
But what I do believe is that we've got every right to say that blackface belongs to a tradition of denigrating black communities.
Should he apologise, Weyman? Should he apologise?
I think he should be more precise about what he should understand. I think he's a bit ignorant not to understand the history of blackface.
But he could understand that and believe that he's not personally going there, couldn't he? He could say, look, he wouldn't do the black and white minstrel show. What he was doing with, as Luke just explained, there was even logic and comedic intelligence behind what he was doing. But
I apologised once for putting on a Dick Emery show because at that time it had really homophobic things inside it, and the Caribbean can put it on a different way, right? Because actually the themes within it were very homophobic, right?
But they were of their time, right? That's what the usual answer is.
But there was nothing wrong with me saying, actually, we don't support it, and we actually believe that LGBT rights have fundamentally changed. So there's nothing wrong with turning around and saying, actually, that doesn't fit with our society, and we understand why we don't want it, and apologising for it. It's because we understand the origin.
All right, listen, I have to step in there, guys. We could have gone on for a lot longer on this. Luke Stephen, comedian. Thank you. Weyman Bennett, co-founder of Stand Up for Racism. I guess the question that flows from that quite obviously is, should comedians apologise for controversial content in their past? 0344 499 1000. I'll come back to Dick Emery in a second, because many of you will be going, Dick who? I'll tell you precisely what Weyman was referring to there in a moment. This is Talk TV live from the Talk Radio studios.